personhood status in an effort to protect it from future threats. Fitzpatrick says she'll be watching to see how this Manitoba case unfolds. A 60-year-old man from Elgin, Manitoba is dead after a rollover crash on Highway 23. Killarney RCMP say it happened yesterday afternoon west of Nanette. When police arrived on scene, they found an SUV in the ditch. Investigators say the SUV had been going very fast when it hit the ditch. The vehicle hit an approach and rolled several times. The driver was the only person in the vehicle and was not wearing a seatbelt. A car connected to a recent kidnapping and murder has been located. Yesterday, Winnipeg police asked for help finding a black Honda Civic. It's in connection to the death of Zayed Shamo last week. This morning, police located the vehicle, they say, and thanked the public for its help. 2 people have been charged with first-degree murder in connection to Shamo's death. The celebrated London department store Harrods is being sued by 37 women who are accusing the store's former owner of sexual assault or rape. The allegations against Mohammed Al-Fayed were unveiled today in London. Crystal Guman-Singh has more.
They highlighted the fact that these women, these alleged victims, most cases very young, early 20s, some of them even younger, were selected specifically, that they were subjected to medical exams, that they were surveilled, that there were people who would follow them, that there were video cameras that watched their every move, that they would be threatened. And even in some cases, we heard from one victim by the name of Natasha, an alleged victim, that she had to undergo invasive medical tests, which is something other alleged victims have also said.
I was subjected to an unnecessary and intrusive medical examination. I was never given those results. I was subjected to AIDS and STD testing without consent, and now believe in hindsight, I was checked for my purity.
Harrods does say it is appalled by the allegations of abuse by Mohammed Al-Fayed. He, of course, owned the department store up until 2010. Crystal Guman-Singh, CBC News, London.
Mohammed Al-Fayed was the father of Dodi Al-Fayed, who died in the car crash that killed Princess Diana. The senior Al-Fayed died last year. The UN Security Council meets today to discuss the possibility of a full-scale war breaking out between Israel and Hezbollah. It follows this week's pager and walkie-talkie attacks across Lebanon, along with ongoing strikes on Hezbollah various targets by Israeli fighter jets. And at the same time, Hezbollah fired at least 140 rockets today into northern Israel. Here's what that sounded like. Hezbollah says it's been targeting Israeli air defense bases and the headquarters of an Israeli armored military unit. General Motors is recalling close to 40,000 SUVs and pickup trucks here in Canada. Transport Canada says there are concerns about the software that monitors brake fluid levels. It says low brake fluid could reduce braking performance. The recall includes a range of 2023 product models from the Cadillac Escalade to the Sierra 1500. More than 400 vehicles are being recalled in the United States. And finally, consumers are being warned it's only a matter of time before we see a steep rise in the price of coffee. The world's 2 largest coffee producers, Brazil and Vietnam, are seeing production levels drop off dramatically due to an extended period of extreme heat and drought. In Brazil, the drought conditions are the worst they've seen in 70 years. It has market analysts predicting a supply shortage that will soon drive up prices right around the world. In Winnipeg today, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of 22. In Brandon, a high of 22 with a few clouds. Dauphin, mainly sunny, a strong wind from the west at times, a high of 21. Flin Flon, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of 15 degrees. Thompson, isolated showers at times with temperatures around 11 degrees. And in Churchill, on the bay, periods of rain with a high of 19 degrees and windy. Right now, you are listening to CBC Radio 1.
Hello, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 94.5 FM in the Paw, 95.7 FM in Fisher Branch. I'm Emily Brass, your host this week on Radio Noon. Here's what's coming up on the show. It's that time of year when flocks of geese fill the sky and the parks and waterways around southern Manitoba, where they're not always welcome guests. Barrett Miller from the Assiniboine Park Conservancy will take your questions on how to deal with this fowl influx and other animal encounters this time of year. It's a pillar of Brandon's performing arts community. The Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium is marking its 55th anniversary with a week-long celebration. But first, the RM of Hanover is still drying out. We're going to get an update from the Reeve. 12:07 right now. You're listening to CBC Radio 1, and we're also broadcasting live on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Southeastern Manitoba got soaked this week. The city of Steinbach saw 132 millimeters of rain just over the course of 24 hours, and the RM of Hanover, which surrounds that city, got a similar amount. The deluge caused roads and basements to flood, and residents are still clearing out. Jim Funk is Reeve of the RM of Hanover. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
So how badly impacted was Hanover after all of that rain?
Well, we had a substantial amount of rain. We have had a number of different reports from varying anywhere from 7 inches to 10 inches. That is rainfall that that is unheard of for us here. And we for something like that, we just are not prepared for. And I don't even know if we can prepare ourselves. According to engineering firm, then we cannot even prepare ourselves for something that in that vast amount of rain in such a short time.
Yeah, such a short time. And you've lived in Hanover your whole life. Have you ever seen overland flooding like this before?
I have never experienced this amount of rain in such a short time. In 2019, I remember we had between 5 and 5.5, maybe 6 inches of rain in 24 hours, I think it was, a day or two, and that had impact on us in our community. Never something like this, though.
So how are things looking now across the RM of Hanover?
Things are starting to look better. Kleefeld the water has receded, and our streets are clear at this point. We do have a lot of cleanup, that needs to get done there. There's a number of basements that have flooded, and we will we will pick away on our part or infrastructure that some of the maybe to see if there's damaged infrastructure, not necessarily in the towns, but in the rural areas like roads and so forth. So we are hoping to have our roads back in order and in shape by end of the day today.
Well, yeah, what kind of effect did it have on the roads?
We had a number of roads that it wasn't, they were washing out, and therefore we have to start hauling some gravel and grading roads and just repairing some of the deeper holes that were caused by the water flow.
And how you mentioned people having to clean out their basements. How bad has that been for people who live there?
You know what, I have heard this, and you know what, I haven't gone in to see. I'm going into Kleefeld today and later on today, but we do have a number of basements in every community. Grunthal, Kleefeld, Mitchell, Blumenort. Every community has flooded basements. So I believe there's a lot of basements there that have been flooded. I know one of our sitting councillors also had his basement flooded from the Grunthal area. So it has not been easy for the people.
Is there any support for people who are dealing with that flooding in their homes?
We, we asked them to go to their home insurance first. That would be the first step. And then residents are also encouraged to submit their to disaster financial assistance, report to the province as well. We have a link on our website, and they can tap into that and make that report. Hanover has submitted a community impact assessment on Manitoba Emergency Measure Organization also, and we will be applying for municipal disaster financial assistance.
Oh, really? Okay. So how does that work? Are you already speaking with the province about that? Like, what are they saying about it?
They have been notified, to my understanding, from administration, and we are documenting, and we will be sending in some of our cost and reports as to what has gone and happened within our municipality.
Okay. And then, for those people who are still cleaning up and have been dealing with all that flood, is there anything else you want them to know? Like, is there other kind of help? Like, it might be affecting even like being able to go to work and do things like that at this point, right?
Yes. Like our streets are clear. Like that part should, I think the homeowners are now, kind of left with the mess. That it can be overwhelming to have a mess like this. So, if there is ways and means that we as a municipality can help them, if there's information they need that we can help them with, by all means, we just tell them to reach out, phone administration here in the office, and we will do our best to help them along.
Mm-hmm. And as the Reeve, are you thinking of ways the RM might be able to prevent flood damage like this in the future?
Well, you know what? We have spoken with, Environment Canada just did a report, and they said this was a storm. They hadn't seen something like this in 120 to 130 year. They call it a 120, 130 year storm event. So you and I both have not seen something like this. And I don't know if we ever will again. We spoke with our engineers as to that are doing the engineering for us in our communities and municipality, and our guidelines are the same. May it be for the city of Winnipeg, the city of Steinbach, or the community of Kleefeld or Niverville, or wherever in the province, we are all regulated in the same fashion, same way. We all have the same policies as far as to what we have to abide by.
So I guess your systems are ready to handle that normal amount of storms, but this one was just out of the ballpark.
Yes. Had we had 5 inches of rain, we would have been able to handle it. Right. At 5 inches of rain, it is kind of geared to that, you will have rain. Your retention pond will be full. Your streets and boulevards will be full. Your yard will have water. And like we call it, you'll have water till the doorsteps, but your house is still okay. But anything after 5 inches of rain, engineering is telling us that the piping would have to be huge in order to facilitate the flow. Nevertheless, we had in some communities 8. We had one community that claimed his has 10. So it is a substantial amount of rain.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today, Jim.
You are welcome.
Jim Funk is Reeve of the RM of Hanover. And in a written statement, the province says Manitoba Emergency Measures Organization has been working with a number of communities as they respond to the impacts from this recent rainfall event. The province has not received requests for disaster financial assistance from any impacted communities, it says, but it says it has received 7 requests from the general public. And for more on claiming disaster financial assistance for your property through the province, go to gov.mb.ca/EMO/DFA.
Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and in Puckatawagan, 102.5 FM. We're also broadcasting live on the CBC Manitoba YouTube channel and the CBC Listen app. I'm Emily Brass. Here's what's still to come. The Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium is the place where Brandonites experience major arts performances, and now the city's cultural hub is gearing up to mark its 55th anniversary with 4 days of tours and celebrations. We'll hear about the WMCA's history and what's planned for October. And then some of our feathered friends are stopping in southern Manitoba as they get set for their big flight south. Do you like to see the geese here, or are you squawking about them taking over parks and leaving behind a mess? Assiniboine Park's Manager of Education and Programming will answer your questions on geese and other wildlife as we head into fall. You can call us. You can start calling now if you like. 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us at 204-588-7355. Taking a look at the forecast for Winnipeg today, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 22. Increasing cloudiness tonight with some showers overnight. Breezy, low 12. Showers tomorrow morning ending around noon, but we're going to get 5 to 10 millimeters. High 17 tomorrow and quite windy. Some gusts even up to 70 kilometers an hour. Well, Brandon is celebrating its premier venue for the performing arts. The Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium opened its doors to great fanfare back in 1969. And for its 55th anniversary, the storied venue is opening its doors for a 4-day party. Caitlin Mitchell joins us now from Brandon. She's the general manager for the WMCA. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Emily.
So how important is the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium to the community and to the arts scene in Brandon?
We are the heartbeat. We're the very centrally located in Brandon, and we've been the home for local theaters, school band performances, and major concerts, as you've said, since 1969 for over 55 years now.
So would you say everyone's had some kind of experience with the WMCA?
Almost everyone, I would say. There is numerous people from not just Brandon, but all over Westman who have a deep connection to this building, very, very fond memories. Some people even jokingly say they grew up here with how much they were involved with the arts.
Oh, wow. Nice. So you've planned 4 days of events to celebrate the 55th anniversary, and that's starting on October 1st. What's on the lineup?
Yeah, so 4 days, October 1st, we're going to be having a gala fundraiser. More details will be announced about that this afternoon, but what I can tell you is that it's going to be a black tie affair starting around 5 p.m. and limited attendance. There's only going to be 100 tickets available for the gala, so people will want to jump on that quick. It will be followed by a season announcement in the concert hall. At 7:30, we're going to be announcing our 2024-2025 WMCA Presents season lineup. And it's going to feature a free concert with Filthy Lucre, which is a band from Minnesota that many from the region might be familiar with. They were the first band to ever play at Classic Rock in Minnesota in 1996. So we're really excited to have them be a part of this event. On October 2nd and 3rd, we're going to be having an open house for the facility so people can come and check it out, check out all the memorabilia we'll have set up. And if they'd like to call in advance and book a guided tour with myself, they absolutely are welcome to do that. And then finally, on Friday, we're going to wrap up the celebrations with what we're calling Mini Fest. So we're going to have a food truck outside and some buskers with with live music. Bands will start at 6:30 p.m. on our stage. We have Matt Corey, who is a local guy here in Brandon, and that'll be followed by Crude City Classics and Full Flannel Jacket. And celebrations will wrap up that night with DJ Red hosting a dance party in the Grand Salon.
Wow, that sounds like a great day. And that's free on the Friday then?
The Friday is a $20 admission, either in advance or at the door.
Okay, still not bad for such a big lineup. So take us back to 1969. How exciting do you think it was for the auditorium to open up for people in Brandon?
I would think it would have been extremely exciting. This was a project that had been talked about and in the works since the late 50s. So finally coming to fruition, I can imagine our arts community was absolutely thrilled to get this venue. And it sounded like quite the soiree when they had opening week. They did the ribbon cutting on October 1st, and then they had multiple days of touring and dignitaries in the facility. And then they had the Royal Winnipeg Ballet on October 4th in 1969. So very important to our community to have such professional talent come through.
So that just allowed, this higher caliber sort of performer to come to Brandon, opening up this venue.
Absolutely. They were able to accommodate a lot more touring professionals. They had by the likes of Kitty Wells, we've had Burton Cummings, we've had so many, Tom Cochrane, just multiple performing, touring Canadian artists that are able to now come through and take advantage of our beautiful, massive proscenium stage.
Mm-hmm. And so for those of us who haven't been to Brandon yet, what does the WMCA look like, and how much of it is still the same today as it was in 1969?
We've done a lot to maintain a lot of the original character. So when you walk into our theater, you're greeted in a huge foyer area with large staircases coming down out of the concert hall and 4 gorgeous Italian crystal chandeliers that are still here to this day. The only things that have been really changed is, some maintenance work, replacing the carpet when it got worn, and some painting, but the original charm from 1969 is still evident wherever you go within the building.
Sounds beautiful. I looked at some pictures. It looks spectacular. So does the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium, still generate that kind of excitement when people are walking in for their first time?
Absolutely. Some of my favorite times here are when we have our student groups come through. We host a lot of Christmas concerts and school band concerts, and the children, when they come in for the first time and the chandeliers are all lit up, all you can hear from my office is, wow, it's like a palace, or, they're just so stunned at the grandeur. It just makes me smile every single time.
Yeah, I get that feeling when I walk into those grand halls, even ones I've been in before. That's just so great. So what's on the lineup for the upcoming season?
So this season, we are very excited to present. So far, we have 8 confirmed shows in our season, and a little tip, there may be more to come. But things we have announced so far, we're very excited to host our first children's programming with Blippi Join the Band Tour in October. And then we also have Jan Arden coming with her Christmas tour in December. Everyone loves Jan Arden. She's a Canadian treasure. And one other one that I'm really excited about is we're bringing Rhythm of the Dance in March of 2025. So some international talent coming to the Westman region.
And more to be revealed, I guess, during that black tie gala or just after the black tie gala.
Absolutely, yes. We've put together a video that we're excited to share. And if you can't miss the gala, or if you have to miss the gala, keep an eye out for our socials that week. We will be announcing the lineup to the general public a little later on if they can't make the season announce on October the 1st.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to seeing that. Thanks so much for joining us today, Caitlin.
Thanks for having me.
Caitlin Mitchell is General Manager for the Western Manitoba Centennial Auditorium in Brandon. It's celebrating its 55th anniversary with events from October 1st to the 4th. Well, here's a local cover of a country classic. This is Brandon's own Mitchell McCoons with On the Road Again.
On the road again, I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, going places that I've never been, saying things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like the band of hippies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keeps turning our way. And our way is on the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. Best of friends, insisting that the world keeps turning our way. And our way is on the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again. I can't wait to get on the road.
Woo! A local take on a song you may have heard before. That was Mitchell McCoons with Willie Nelson's classic On the Road Again.
Poplar River First Nation, let's get to know each other a little bit better. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to your community September 23rd to 27th. I can't wait to meet you and discover the incredible stories that make Poplar River unique. CBC's Communities in Focus, September 23rd to 27th. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
You're listening to Radio Noon on 89.3 FM in Winnipeg and in Poplar River. We're at 103.5 FM and we're heading out that way next week. Well, still to come on the show, it's that time of year when flocks of geese fill the sky and the parks and waterways around southern Manitoba where they're not always the most welcome guests. Do you have any questions on how to deal with this fowl influx or other animal encounters this time of year? Barrett Miller from Assiniboine Park will be here to take your calls. And you can start calling now. The number is 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. 0893. You can also text us 204-588-7355. Maybe you're somewhere where you can't make a call, so text us 204-588-7355. Right now in Winnipeg, it's 16 degrees, 12 degrees in Thompson. In Swan River, it's 14. Pinawa, 15 degrees right now. Melita, 16. The local news is coming up next.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 18 degrees with mostly blue skies in downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. A 28-year-old Winnipeg man has been charged in the deaths of two people who died following an early morning fire last weekend. Alex Donald Corshane has been charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder and arson with disregard for human life. Police say the married couple was found in a suite of a building on Atlantic Avenue near Main Street. They were taken to hospital but died. The building was mixed use, both residential and commercial. Police say the couple did not know the accused. A geography professor at the University of Winnipeg is watching to see what comes of a court challenge seeking charter rights for Lake Winnipeg. The Southern Chiefs organization wants the lake to be given the rights and protections of a living entity. The organization is taking Manitoba Hydro and the provincial government to court. Patricia Fitzpatrick says she's interested in hearing what remedies SCO is seeking on behalf of the lake.
Well, I think this would be a very significant ruling in Manitoba. I think that we have some legislation which is pretty old and out of date that needs to be updated, that has influenced how we approach our responsibilities towards the environment.
The statement of claim says the way the province and Manitoba Hydro have controlled water levels has had dire effects on the lake. Meanwhile, Manitoba Hydro says it complies with all environmental and licensing requirements for its projects. 3 years ago, the Magpie River in Quebec was granted legal personhood status in an effort to protect it from future threats. And finally, CBC News has learned the Ontario government is considering legislation that would ban new bike lanes if a lane of vehicle traffic has to be removed. And this comes at a time when Canada is trying to lower its greenhouse gas emissions. Lorenda Redekop has more.
In the internal draft documents, there's a section that reads pro-driver package. At the top of the list, prohibiting bike lanes that require removal of a traffic lane. Government sources confirm it's a measure being considered. It's unclear whether this has gone to cabinet. Tim Gray with Environmental Defence says it would be the wrong move.
It means dead people. We see it all the time, a huge number of traffic fatalities involving cyclists.
The government declined to comment on this story, but Premier Doug Ford has promised to reduce gridlock. Some blame bike lanes for contributing to it. Last fall, Ford had this message for Toronto's mayor.
Get rid of those bike lanes on Bloor and Etobicoke.
Maddie Simiatiki is director of the University of Toronto's Infrastructure Institute.
This government has signaled that the car is king.
He says studies show cycling doesn't increase congestion, more cars do. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Matt.
Back soon.
That's CBC's Matt Humphrey joining us from the Manitoba newsroom. And joining me now in the studio is Riley Lachuk, our CBC Manitoba weather specialist. And Riley, still talking about rain?
Still talking about rain, Emily, in parts of the province. But I can assure you, as we get through the weekend, things will be a little bit more dry, a little bit more sunshine as we get into next week. So we'll get through that. So I'm going to start first with a rainfall warning that's in place for Tuduli Lake, the area around Tuduli Lake, north of Thompson, west of the Hudson Bay coast. Could see up to 60 millimeters of rain by the time we get to this time on Saturday. This is all part of that area of low pressure that brought us some stormy weather and some heavy rain to parts of southern Manitoba throughout the week this week, through yesterday, certainly for sure. And that has kind of cleared nicely, but we are seeing still some rain falling through parts of northern Manitoba, Norway House, through Lynn Lake, Thompson, seeing a few showers through the afternoon. Expect that to continue. Here in the south, though, partly cloudy skies, a little bit of high weather clouds still into northwestern Ontario, but that clears as we get into the rest of the day today. So by the time we get to supper time, even places like Kenora through Fort Francis into a mainly sunny sky, certainly here in Winnipeg, mainly sunny through the rest of the afternoon. Little weak disturbance begins to move through the province again on Saturday. This brings us a few showers through the morning hours. By noon, though, we're back to a partly cloudy sky. And as we get into Sunday, we're back to a mainly sunny sky province-wide. So Sunday definitely looking a lot drier and a lot calmer wind-wise as we head into the next couple of days. Rainfall projections for southern Manitoba, at least looking at a general 5 to 10 millimeters through the morning hours tomorrow. Could see some higher pockets, particularly on the eastern side of Lake Winnipeg, north of Victoria Beach, Grand Beach, sort of into the Barons River area. Could see some of those heavier pockets. What I will mention, though, tomorrow definitely will be the winds that you feel out there. We're looking at northwest winds really picking up as we get through the day on Saturday. Could even through the midday see some gusts up to 60 or 70 kilometers an hour. So we're definitely looking at some wind here in southern Manitoba. Today, though, 22 degrees in both Winnipeg and Brandon, 21 the high in Dauphin this afternoon, 13 with rain continuing in Thompson, 17 tomorrow with morning showers and those very gusty northwest winds. Sunday, the winds die off a bit, 18 degrees, and then 18s and 20s through Monday and Tuesday. And a lot drier as we head into next week as well.
Okay, so for this weekend, if you're making outdoor plans, Sunday's the day.
Sunday today's the day. Tomorrow, a bit rainy in the morning and definitely very windy throughout the day tomorrow.
Yeah, we haven't had wind like that in a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
It'll kind of blow everything out.
It's back. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend.
That's Riley Lachuk. He's our CBC Manitoba weather specialist, and he'll also be hosting the TV show today at 6 o'clock. Time now is 12:35. Oh, just about 12:36. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg and 105.3 FM in Swan River, in Thompson 100.9 FM. We're also broadcasting live on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Well, with the change in seasons, you might be noticing some changes in wildlife. Geese are flocking around Winnipeg, the Interlake, and other parts of Manitoba. And other animals like deer, groundhogs, and mice are also making their presence better known this time of year. Have you noticed any changes in animal behavior as we head into fall? Do you have any questions on why you're seeing more of these creatures these days, or how to best handle animal encounters? Give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us at 204-588-7355. And joining us in studio to answer your questions is Barrett Miller. He's the manager of education and programming at Assiniboine Park and a lifelong naturalist. Hi, Barrett.
Hi, Emily.
So great to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So when it comes to animals, one of the biggest changes we see this time of year is a lot more geese. Why are there so many flocks right now in southern Manitoba?
Migration season is very much in full swing. And Winnipeg, just because of our location where we are in the world, we are a bit of a magnet for geese. And the beautiful mixed-use landscape we've built around the city in southern Manitoba really just enhances that for our feathered compadres, the geese. We're about halfway from the Hudson Bay lowlands down to the Gulf of Mexico. If you've ever been on a long trip, you know that sometimes you need to pull the car over and get out and stretch. Airplanes land to refuel. You need to make connections. If you're a cyclist, you know, it's great to have the wind at your back, but you need to stop and refuel, drink some water. Geese are the same way. They collect into flocks and they fly down the central flyway, sort of a guide path down between the big lakes in Manitoba into the Red River Valley. And they get about halfway and they need to stop. It's called staging. When an animal does a layover in its migration, it's called staging, not a layover. So they're staging here. They sleep on our waterways, retention ponds, lakes, our rivers. And then they fly during the daytime to find good sources of food, either in the city or on the fields around. And then they come back and settle at night. And that's one of the reasons that we see so many geese this time of year.
Yeah, I saw a ton of them when I was at the beach last weekend in Denotar. And, you know, it kind of was keeping people away from that part of the beach. We've spoken in the past, you and I, about how to handle aggressive geese in the spring. You're even somewhat of a goose whisperer, I would say. But how is their behavior different in the fall?
So in the springtime, geese have one thought, and their brains are only about the size of your thumbnail. So there's not a lot of room for complex thought. And in the springtime, they're hyper-focused on establishing a nesting territory, building a nest, and defending and feeding that family. In the fall time, they know that it's time to go. They know that it's a lot safer and easier to migrate if you're around a lot of other similar animals, so they flock up. Big flocks of geese have, by just the very nature of being around that many other individuals, need to drop the level of aggression a little bit to get along with their neighbors. So geese in the fall are not prone to chase or hiss like they are in the springtime. If you sort of gently move them along, they usually gently move along. If you can, just sort of leave them to their space and sort of use your corner of the beach, your corner of the park, you'll actually coexist really, really well. And you might actually get to see some of those flock dynamics. Who seems to be in charge? Who's making the call on what you eat and when you eat? When is it time to go and when is it not time to stay? So in the fall time, live and let live is what the geese are thinking. And that's actually sort of the best advice I can give folks for this time of year for getting along better with the geese. If there's specific, like if you need to get them out of a specific area, like a beach, possibly put up a little fence that you can get over, but a goose can't.
Oh, that's an idea.
If you're a cottager and you want it, or have a nice lawn and you don't want the geese on, leave the grass around the water edge a little bit more ragged and only manicure the part that you really use, they'll stay on their part, maybe off of yours.
Okay, well, that's good advice. Give us a call if you want to learn more about geese or other wildlife and how they're behaving differently. Maybe you have a story about a deer you saw on the way to work or a raccoon or anything. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, or text us 204-588-7355. And actually, we have a call. We have Wade from Houston, Texas, and he's been driving through Manitoba and has a story. Wade, tell us a bit about what you've been seeing with the geese.
Well, hi there. I drove up yesterday from North Dakota, and multiple times in front of that storm front yesterday, I kept seeing these big V's of the geese. And sometimes I would see them in the fields, and then I saw more of them in the fields in Manitoba than I did in America. And I just thought they were beautiful and graceful. I'd never seen so many of them in one day before. Houston's real close to the Gulf Coast, and usually I just see them maybe for a day. They might pass through, and it's at most 20 or 30, but this was just amazing to me. Listening to y'all, I learned a lot that I didn't know they were aggressive or anything because they never stopped for us, really. I was kind of laughing a little bit, but I've loved watching them and seeing them. And Manitoba's beautiful, by the way. I love it.
Well, thanks so much, Wade. So why was he seeing them ahead of the storm like that?
So, Wade, you were actually likely seeing geese that were we had some pretty strong south winds associated with that storm front here yesterday. And you were likely seeing geese that lived in that area or have found themselves sort of halfway along their migration route, as I said earlier. You were likely seeing them flying to feed and then coming back. That's what you saw in the fields, and then coming back to water. They're not going to try fight that south wind to migrate. Hearing that we have big northwest winds in the forecast for tomorrow, watch the skies, because you might see a lot more arriving from further north. And actually, some of those ones that you saw in the Dakotas yesterday might be on their way down towards Texas. The reason you probably don't see the big clusters like we have on the northern plains, and frankly, the geese don't know the borders there, so I'm going to say northern plains right now, is they've already started fanning out to different places in Texas and Louisiana and those places by the time they get down to Houston. So you likely don't get to see the concentration that we do, and you're absolutely right. It's one of the most magnificent migrations on Earth, and I'm so glad that you're able to experience that in this corner of the world.
Thanks so much for your call, Wade. We really appreciate that, and hopefully you'll be able to catch more geese when you get back down home. We also have Brian on the line who has a question about where the geese are going when they leave Manitoba. Hi, Brian. Tell us where you're calling from and tell us more specifically your question.
Yeah, and I think you folks may have answered the question already. I'm just curious as to where I'm calling from, Southwest Manitoba. I'm just curious when the birds are staging here, where's their ultimate fly point? Are they going to? I think your guest made a reference to Texas and Louisiana. I heard different. I heard they just go to Minneapolis, so Minnesota. Either way, I'm just curious where they're going. Thank you so much, and have a super day.
And all of those answers are correct. There's a few different subspecies of Canada geese that live here in Manitoba, and depending on where you spend your summer, sort of dictates where you spend your winter. There's the lesser Canada goose, and they are found more in northern Manitoba, closer to Hudson Bay. They'll actually migrate down to sort of the mid-south, I would say southern Arkansas, Oklahoma, northern Texas. So the ones that are coming from Hudson Bay are going a little bit further, but not maybe all the way to the Gulf. The ones from further up, almost the near Arctic, they are actually making that trip all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Those would be the ones that are dispersing themselves over Houston and places like that. The giant Canada subspecies, called that because they are some of the biggest Canada geese in the world. They're the ones that nest locally. They're the ones that you would see nesting in southwestern Manitoba, around Winnipeg, out towards the Whiteshell. The biggest ones, you'd think would have the power to go the furthest. They are the lazy migrators. And I shouldn't say that. Any migration is incredibly impressive, and I for sure cannot flap hard and end up in Minneapolis. But a goose that is raised in southern Manitoba probably flies with its parents to southern Minnesota, into Iowa, sort of the northern Midwest, just far enough south that they have reliable access to open water in the wintertime, not necessarily all the way. It's kind of interesting. The smaller geese are the ones that nest up north and make that big flight. The lessers are not giant, but they're not the least Canada goose. They're the lesser. They're a little bit smaller, but they're not as small as the ones up north. They do the second longest migration, and it's the giant Canada goose that has the short ones. So I very well may have been the person who said they only go as far as Minneapolis in the past. And like I said, all answers in this one, you'd have to fill in that, not A, B, C, but D, all of the above for where they go in the wintertime on this particular question.
Thanks for that call, Brian. And if you want to call in with questions about geese or other wildlife and how they are behaving differently this time of year, the number is 204-780-0893 and to text 204-588-7355. And we did get a text. They didn't leave their name, but it's a question about mice. And they're wondering, how do I deal with mice coming into a home and get rid of them for good? So Barrett, why are we getting more mice this time of year, and what might we do about it?
So the mice are coming in because our houses are warm and full of food. We need to keep our houses warm because we like being warm in the wintertime, so that's not really something we can change. What we can do is remove anything that might be close to the house that's providing them cover as they sneak around and try to find an opening. Mice don't need a very big opening at all to get in. Most mammals, actually, if they can fit their skull on their shoulders, and on a mouse that is tiny, they can get into a space. So that's the other thing. Try to seal off any spaces or gaps that you see. Sweepers at the bottom of doors. If there's a little bit of space underneath where a porch or a step meets the house is often a common one. So try to seal everything up and move the nature slightly, like only a couple, maybe a meter away from your foundation, away from your house, and make sure that any food in your house is contained in airtight containers. It can be clean, it can be fine. Mice have incredible senses of smell, and if they're coming in for the warmth and then they find easy food, well, there's two problems solved at once. So that's probably my best advice on that. There's any number of things that can help you once they're actually in your house. I would recommend, as a naturalist, as somebody who has a pet in the house, and I would recommend against using poison. But once they're in, try to get them out by whatever means works best for you, and try to make sure they don't get in. Control the food sources, clean up food sources around the yard, move them away from the house, find those access points. And this is a case, mice are generally, they can be kind of destructive once they're inside, chewing things, eating our food. If you can't find all the access points, there are pros out there who can help you with that. And most pest professionals now will try to control by that way. Just keep them out, exclude them. It's easier to keep them out than to deal with them once they're in.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we do have a call on line 1 here from Mike. He's calling, asking about frogs. Mike, tell us where you're calling from and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Mike. I'm calling from Winnipeg. And my question is, normally I hear frogs croaking in the springtime, like the boreal chorus frogs and the wood frogs, but sometimes I hear them in the fall too. I'm just wondering why that might be.
Hours of daylight, frogs being a little bit territorial. Frogs do definitely call more frequently in the springtime because it is their mating season. They're announcing their presence. They're still doing the same thing in the fall. It would be fewer of them. They're likely not actually looking for a mate, but they are announcing their presence and a little bit of territorialism. Also, I love amphibians, but they are not the world's most intelligent critters. A cool day followed by a really warm day. I'm feeling spring, so I'm going to make my call. That can happen. And that's why it's usually on the warmest, sunniest days of fall that we find that. And then all of a sudden, even if it's a super, super sunny, warm day, mid-October to late October, all of a sudden, there's no frog sounds anymore because they have put themselves to bed for the winter time. Some of the species you mentioned do their hibernation in leaf litter. Some will actually bury themselves in the mud at the bottom of a waterway. So they do actually make that call as the days get shorter and colder, and eventually you don't. It's not that they're super confused. It's not a problem. It's climate change might affect how they go into and out of migration, or out of hibernation rather, but it's not really on the individual, am I going to call today or not basis. That's really just sort of a weather thing, not a climate thing. Savor those last couple of frog calls of the year because they do indicate really nice, warm, summery days in September, and we've only got a handful of those.
Thanks so much, Mike, for pointing that out. I'm going to be listening for some frog songs. That was Mike from Winnipeg. And then you touched on hibernation. Of course, there's other animals getting ready for hibernation. Are there some we might see more these days as they're getting ready for their long winter sleep?
Well, one critter that does do a very long winter sleep that is fairly common in southern Manitoba, but very commonly misidentified, is the woodchuck or groundhog. I don't usually use Latin names, but it is Marmota monax, only because that goes by a ton of names in common language. I've even heard them called whistle pigs and land beavers.
Oh my goodness.
So Marmota monax, the woodchuck, they start the spring after a long winter the shape of a Canadian football. By the time they're ready for their long winter sleep, some of them look more like a basketball. They really pack on the energy in terms of a fat layer, and they too will go underground, and it is a long, long sleep. What do they look like? They're about the size and shape of a loaf of bread or a Canadian football. Nice little rodent face. The land beaver moniker is not out of line. They do not have a flat tail. They're not as big as a real beaver. But I have got calls in the past, like there's a beaver with missing its tail and it's eating my garden. What do? I want to help. It's like, that's a woodchuck, and put up a fence. It can find food elsewhere. But folks, you'll likely see them moving a little bit more slowly, and they are very hungry this time of year as they get ready for that long winter nap.
And if you see one, they look so cute, should you be wanting to say hi to that groundhog?
All wildlife is best observed from a distance. We all remember social distancing 2 meters away. That is what I recommend with any wild animal, not for COVID or cough on them purposes, but just sort of they're wild animals. We can't predict what they're going to do next, and we are the wildest animals in nature. They're a little bit afraid of us. They might look roly-poly, but underneath all that roly-poliness, most critters, and woodchucks are a good example, pure muscle. They have some very solid adaptations to survive. In woodchuck's case, they have teeth, they have claws for digging. Don't let your shins be where they decide to burrow. Stay about 2 meters back and just observe from a distance.
Okay, that sounds good with me. We still have time for some calls. If you have any questions about wildlife or geese, call us at 204-780-0893 or text us at 204-588-7355. And Barrett, another animal I've been hearing people talk about seeing more often right now is deer. Why is that?
We're seeing a fair number of deer right now because they're active at dawn and dusk. They are active during the day. They do move at night, but dawn and dusk are their favorite times to move. As the days get shorter, our most active time, rush hour, beginning of the school day. We're also moving about dawn and dusk. That actually intensifies as October sets in. Another thing that intensifies as October sets in that gets the deer moving, November is their mating season or rut. October and late September are when the males are starting to establish those territories, and the does are starting to feed on the good green stuff that is still around before the leaves fall and things dry up for wintertime. So we're seeing feeding for winter and fighting for territory happening at the times where we're most active, right around that last week of October through the end of November, through the time change. Rush hour coincides almost exactly with sunset and sunrise. So please be extra cautious on the roads, because a hungry deer or a deer that's thinking about territory isn't thinking about traffic. It's thinking about other deer. We can use our bigger brains and anticipate that they are moving around right now, getting ready for what's happening next in their lives, getting ready for winter as we move around, getting ready for our day or ending our day. So there's not more deer around right now. We're seeing them more because they're actually out and about when we're out and about most.
That makes sense. Give us a call if you have questions about wildlife. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, or text us at 204-588-7355. And one thing I'm wondering about, Barrett, because I do like to hike, and autumn is such a nice time for hiking. What about the bears?
Okay, so bears are also one of those animals that take a long winter nap. Black bears are active from the end of snow to when they go to sleep in the snow. Really, as a hiker, if you're following good bear-safe procedures that you would in July or August, you're okay in the fall. If you're camping, again, if you're doing the things that you should normally be doing in terms of controlling smells around your campsite, picking up garbage, definitely not feeding wildlife, making your presence known. You don't need to be super obnoxious about it. Don't need to be blasting music down the trail, but just casual conversation. Let the bears know that you're around. Let the wildlife know that you're around. And keep those food smells to a minimum and contained where they should be. And you're probably going to be fine. If you do run into a bear, it is likely more interested in finding food than anything that you are doing or not doing. Give it lots of space. More than 2 meters.
More than 2 meters in that
Social
case.
distance with a bear is more like 20 meters.
20 meters. That's good
Give
with
it
me.
some space, and it will likely go about its feeding day. If you do find a bear and it's eating something, don't try to approach where it's eating. It's in the middle of a meal. You wouldn't like it if a bear came up to you while you were having a picnic. You know, I don't love it when I have a good bite in my mouth and a server comes up. How's it going? How's it
It's the worst time.
Don't ask the bear. How's that fish tasting?
We have one last question that we'll have to do quickly, like in the last minute or so here. Glenn from Winnipeg wrote and asked, how have squirrels become more aggressive with eating late summer garden vegetables? They seem to have no impunity to my presence, he says.
Well, red squirrels are always a little bit territorial and very, very bold. Gray squirrels do pick up their feeding, gathering, and hiding activities. So I can't say that I've seen them get more aggressive necessarily, more noticeable because they are more hungry, and they are hiding things. Also, all the produce in your garden is either overripe or just ripening now. The squirrels are smart. They're going to go for the stuff while it's in season. They're not going to go for it before. So you are seeing a little bit of uptick in how hungry they are, their drive to hide food for winter. So that's probably explaining why you're seeing more gray squirrels. The red squirrels were just waiting till everything was perfect and they wouldn't have cared about you in July. They just want ripe tomatoes.
Sounds like they have taste. Well, Barrett, this has been so fascinating. We appreciate everybody who called. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
That was Barrett Miller, Manager of Education and Programming at Assiniboine Park. And Faith Fundal, quickly, what's coming up on Up to Speed?
A plan good for families and good for business, how the province is framing its new energy policy, but what's different? We'll dig into the details coming up.
Oh, that sounds very interesting, too. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who called and listened. Our technician today, May McKillop, our show director, Dylan Longhurst, and producing our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel is Kevin Nipatebo. I'm Emily Brass, and have a fantastic rest of your Friday, a good weekend as well. Get out there and enjoy the wildlife, I hope. Have a good one.